Hello, good day everyone. Welcome to this video on characteristics of quantitative research. But firstly, let us define what is quantitative research. It says here, quantitative research is the use of computational procedures. It is an objective, methodical, experiential investigation of recognizable phenomena. It is highlighted with numerical analysis of data, expecting that the results can be generalized to some bigger population and describe a particular observation having no biases. The primary concern of quantitative research is numbers and its relationships with events. So what are the keywords that we need to remember when we talk about quantitative research? First, computational procedures. Yes, quantitative research requires statistical analysis that will ask us, of course, to analyze data using computational techniques. It is also objective and it is also methodical, experiential investigation. Why methodical? Because there are processes that we need to undergo before we can derive at the data that we are trying to gather, right? So there are methods or there are procedures that we need to follow. Next, it is highlighted with numerical analysis. That's it. Because the word quantitative comes from the root word quantity. And when we speak of quantity, we deal of numbers. How many, right? So we present data using numbers. What else? It can be generalized to some bigger population. That's why when we are going to choose or to determine the population, we do not usually take all those respondents who belong to that population. Meaning, we don't take all the members of the population as respondents. For example, if there are 1,000 probable participants or respondents of your study as the population, we only get samples coming from that 1,000. And the goal of quantitative research is that the data that we generate out of the samples can be generalized to the whole population. So what is true to the samples can also be true to the whole population. That is what we mean by the results can be generalized to some bigger population. Okay? And it has no biases because it is objective by nature. And it deals with numbers. Alright? Yeah. So that this is the definition of quantitative research. Now let's proceed to the characteristics of quantitative research to know more about this type of research, quantitative. First, it is objective and not subjective. As I have mentioned earlier, it is objective because it requires precision and accuracy of measurement and analysis, of course. And then furthermore, intuitions and guesses are not practiced or used in developing conclusions or solution to a problem. So we don't just base on our intuitions, we don't just base on our guesses. Instead, we base on an accurate measurement and analysis of the data or variables or concepts. And then another characteristics, research questions are clearly defined. Familiarity of the topic of the research have to be more focused so that it will be clear to the readers and researcher. And research questions have to be precise and clear for which objective answers are sought. All phases of the study are carefully designed before data are gathered. That's it. Because you cannot gather data if you are not yet sure of what data are you going to gather, right? So, at the very early stage of your research, you must clarify already, you should present already the research questions clearly. There is a need for us to carefully design our research questions at the earlier part of our study so that we know where to focus and what to focus. Right? Next, research instrument is clearly structured. So if the research question is clearly defined, the instrument that we are going to use should also be clearly structured. It says here, the instrument of the study is well organized and planned, and with different dimensions and scales. It is a structured research tool like questionnaire or checklist. It also enables to gather or collect measurable characteristics of the population like age, socioeconomic status, number of children, among others. Because these are usually the type of data that we can see in an instrument or in a questionnaire. The age, right? The socioeconomic status, the number of children. But we don't just put all these data or all these variables in a questionnaire or in a research instrument if we know that they are not needed in the study. Okay, so there is really a need also for us to organize and plan the contents of the research instrument, and that makes it clearly structured. If we plan what to place in there, if we plan the data or the variables that we need to gather, okay, and then we try to organize it in such a way that it becomes presentable and it becomes easy for our respondents to answer. Next, numerical presentation of data. It says here, data are organized and presented in the form of numbers and statistics. It is also presented in the form of tables, charts, graphs, and figures that consolidate large numbers of data to show trends, relationships, or differences among variables. Okay, numerical, simply because quantitative research deals with numbers. The data that are presented are also numbers. And how are these numbers being presented? Through tables, charts, graphs, and figures, so that we can show the type of trends. Is it going upward or is it going downward? And then the relationships. What is the type of relationship that exists between variables or between data? Okay? And then differences among the variables. Are there any differences that we can see among the age of the respondents or among their social demographic profiles? Okay? So those are the type of data that we usually present using numbers and in the form of tables, charts, graphs, and figures. Another, large sample sizes. Yes, earlier I have mentioned that quantitative research it can be done by generalizing the results. Okay, That is why one of the characteristics is that there must be large sample sizes. The greater the sample size, the more reliable data analysis that we can have. So the greater is the number of respondents or participants in your study, the more reliable and valid the data will become. Okay, this is to avoid biases in interpreting the results. It also requires normal population distribution curve. A minimum of 20% of the population can be used as respondents of a research. So always remember this. At least 20% of the population can be the samples of your study. Next, replicated but not duplicated. Take note of this. Replicated means it can be studied again, but it should not be a duplicate of the previous study. We can make adjustments, we can make some modifications if we adapted a certain study to conduct our own study. Reliable quantitative studies can be replicated or repeated but not duplicated to verify or confirm the correctness of the results in another setting. Validity of the findings may be eliminating the possibility of spurious conclusions. That's right. So, we can replicate studies. We can adopt one study and conduct it in our own setting or in a different setting. So that is what we call replication. Okay? It doesn't mean that when you adopted the study, doesn't mean that you are entitled to duplicate it. No. You can adopt a study, but you are given the freedom or the choice to conduct it again and try to find its correctness, the correctness of the findings to other groups of respondents. That's one. You can change the demographic profile of the respondents or to another setting. Right. Next, number 7. Data can be used to predict future outcomes or forecasts. Isn't it that we made mention that when we do quantitative research, we can show the trends of the data. So, it's one of the characteristics that it can be used to predict future outcomes or to make a forecast. Through complex mathematical calculations and with the aid of computers and formulated formula scenarios can be predicting future results. This is already with the use of mathematical calculations. That's why we have studies on prediction. What will happen after 20 years? Okay, so we can make use of quantitative research to predict and to forecast what will happen in the future. Next, data can be used to verify existing facts and develop new concepts. A research can validate an existing fact. In some cases, research can be used to develop new ideas needed to make life more comfortable. It's true. We can make use of quantitative research to develop new ideas and to even verify what is the existing fact. We can verify it through our quantitative research, right? Now let us summarize. Quantitative research uses numbers to present data because it deals with quantity. And there are 8 characteristics of quantitative research. First, it is objective. Second, the research questions are clearly defined. Third, the research instrument is clearly structured. And fourth, there is a numerical presentation of data. Fifth, there is a large sample size. Sixth, it is replicated but cannot be duplicated. Seventh, the data can make or predict outcomes. And lastly, the data can verify facts and even develop new ideas. Alright, so that would be all for this video. I hope that you will stay tuned to another videos about quantitative research. Goodbye.